Well, no, well, he called me into his office, and I went into the office, and he just he sat on his desk and just, you know, kicked me and that, and then hit me in the face against the wall. I turned me back, and he just grabbed me by the shoulder, turned me around, said, "Don't ever turn your back on me, or she'll be sorry," and started punching me and all this sort of thing.
Punching you where?
I was punched in the stomach, and just there and there I had a couple of bruises.
Normal restraining physical contact, yes, has to be taken at times. Physical, or what you're calling corporal punishment, I believe you mean by either smacking or slapping or punching. No, I do not, and it's not permitted under any circumstances.
I had a fight. I got put in isolation, and I scratched on the walls, carved on the walls, in great big letters. And one of the men came in and told me, did I do this? And I said, yeah. So he just got stuck into me for a while.
And what does that mean? What did he do exactly?
He used his fist and bashed me head against the wall.
How many times would he have bashed you against the wall, though?
About 3 times.
Really hard, or?
Yeah, really hard. Had a big lump right across me head.
A big lump across my head. All these bashings of young girls are alleged to have occurred behind these walls, the century-old Parramatta Girls' Home. For decades now, there have been continuous allegations of bashings and continuous promises of inquiries from the Child Welfare Department. In New South Wales, it hasn't mattered whether the government has been Liberal or Labor. But despite the promises and the inquiries, in 1973, the allegations in detail are still there. What kind of girl gets into the position where a bashing may occur? What kinds of girls end up in Parramatta? Rosie was 12 when she was told she was an adopted child. In fact, her mother had had her illegitimately during the war. Rosie ran away from home, was picked up on an outer suburban railway station and brought before the court. She was charged with being uncontrollable and was sent to Parramatta at the age of 13 years. It was the beginning of a career in homes for this girl that would finally attract press publicity. She spent nearly 2 years at Parramatta, and when she finally returned home, she ran away again. Parramatta once more. Only this time she was there during the 1961 riots at the girls' home. For her part in the riots, she received 10 days at Long Bay. Out of jail, now aged 15, Rosie was up King's Cross one night with 3 boys. They stole £2.10 from a man coming out of the old Hasty Tasty cafe. A journalist picked up Rosie's story. She waited for 5 months on remand in Long Bay. After the press article, an old lady from Glebe, Mrs. Bessie Guthrie, took up her case.
She was then taken to court and sentenced for 2 years. So actually she did 2 years and 5 months for $5, which seems to me to be an extraordinary sentence for a girl.
In sentencing Rosie in the Sydney Quarter Sessions Court, Judge Stevens said,
"Rosie was one of the saddest cases I've ever had to deal with. I don't want to push her into the gutter. I want to save her soul if I can."
Once in jail, Rosie wrote back to Bessie Guthrie,
"I received a very roasting letter from Mum, telling me all about why Dad won't have anything to do with me. She says it's because their name was in the paper, and I told her I couldn't help it. I'm not going to write any more until she changes her attitude. She's always telling me what I've done wrong, and she harps so much about it, especially when I am trying to forget it and start again."
After she left Long Bay, she was taken out to Gladesville. No, she was taken to Ryde. And she stayed there the 2 weeks that she was supposed to, and then she simply disappeared. And the last I heard of her was she was up in Queensland, and she'd been in a car accident and was partially blind, and that was the end of her.
Did she come back to you in between going
No.
to these institutions?
No.
Did you ever see her again after she'd done the Long Bay?
No,
stint?
she was thoroughly disillusioned and had it.
Thoroughly disillusioned and had it. Age 18. This is where the sorting out process starts for young girls classed as delinquent. They're kept here awaiting trial before the Children's Court. In most cases, a policeman or an officer of the Department of Child Welfare has picked up the girls out of homes or off the street. Under the Child Welfare Act, there are any number of grounds for arrest. But most girls are brought into this shelter because, under the Act, Section 72 says they are neglected if, Part N, they fall into bad associations or are exposed to moral danger.
Debbie, what was the first home that you were in?
Lambie in Melbourne.
And how'd you get in there?
When I was 11, I ran away from home.
What'd you run away from home for?
I was all over this boy, you know. Wasn't allowed to see him and that, so I thought the only way I could see him was to run away.
What, with him?
Yeah.
That's a fairly desperate thing to do at age 11, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, was it somehow or other because of that you finally ended up in Parramatta?
Oh, yeah, I suppose in a way, because every time I ran away from home, it was just to sort of go and see this boy in jail and come up to Sydney, that meant, so...
And, I mean, were you sent in each time for what reason into homes?
Exposed to moral danger.
And were you really exposed to moral danger as you saw it?
No, not at all. I mean, I had a place to stay, a nice place, and had a job, and, you know, everything was all right. I was getting money and that. But they just classed as exposed to moral danger.
In other words, you were living with this bloke and you would have been, what, 14, 15?
Oh, no, in cases I was living by myself or with another girl, you know, but I was still classed as exposed to moral danger because I, you know, could have been in danger.
By whose criteria are the moral danger decided? I mean, in fact, it means a policeman who's going along the street, does it?
Well, it will mean the policeman in the first place. When it gets to court, it will mean, in practice, the magistrate. The magistrates, I mean, it ought to mean moral standards of the community, and I'm sure the magistrates do enforce what they believe to be the moral standards of the community. Of course, as soon as you get into this area of morality, you come across the question about the trouble that there aren't really any experts, and also, of course, the question that the position that these laws were drafted at a time when there was very much more moral cohesion, where everyone really, there was really a common morality to a much greater extent than there is now.
Annual reports of the Child Welfare Department state that no young men or boys are ever picked up on the charge of exposure to moral danger. It is a section of the Child Welfare Act used exclusively on girls.
The age of consent for girls is 16, and the exposure to moral danger charge or claim can apply up till 18, so that, you know, between 16 and 18 they're liable to be exposed to moral danger, although they can legally consent to sexual intercourse.
Once in the girls' shelter in Glebe, they're waiting to go into court. They're made to scrub the floors of the shelter on their knees every day, ordered to wear a uniform, compelled to say grace before meals and prayers before bed, and given as little as 15 minutes out in the sunshine per day. And they're given a medical examination. This doctor, whose name we cannot mention, used to do the medical checks on the girls.
Every morning, someone had to go along and pose some questions to various girls who were appearing in court each morning, and irrespective of whether they were being charged with exposure to moral danger or running away from home or being uncontrollable, they were each subjected by me to what I would call a interrogation, which I considered an intrusion on their privacy, and a physical examination. The interrogation included such questions as, when did you first have intercourse? When did you last? Or alternatively, are you a virgin? And the examination included a pelvic examination, which was to determine whether they were or were not in fact virginal, which, apart from being medically invalid, I think is also ethically invalid. It seemed to me that in this kind of situation, these girls were being subject, through me, to a rather discriminatory, sexist type of law. One can't imagine, for example, boys of the same age being subjected to the same kind of interrogation, nor, one presumes, having their genitalia subject to such careful scrutiny.
Did the girls mind?
I think that they, I think some of them minded and found it an emotionally traumatic situation.
The same day of the medical, the girls are shunted into the children's court. It's the next stop on the line.
You are charged with having fallen into bad associations and having been exposed to moral danger. How do you plead?
Richard Chisholm has represented black children in the Sydney Children's Courts as a member of the Aboriginal Legal Service.
What kind of legal representation do children get in children's courts?
The position is that they're entitled, as a matter of law, to be represented by a lawyer, but almost all of them are not. No one quite knows the reasons, but a lot of them don't know they're entitled to be to have a lawyer. A lot of them can't afford it. There's a great gap in the legal aid here. It seems to me that it's outrageous that these children should have no lawyers, and often the reason is simply because the public solicitor and the public defender don't operate in children's court. And one reform that I'd certainly like to see is a quite comprehensive legal aid system operating in children's courts. The system of the courts makes a mistake in trying to combine the features of a welfare agency with those of a criminal court. And to use a phrase that's been used in both America and England, there's a danger that the system which tries to provide therapy for the child and also to protect the public in the way a criminal court does, gives the child the worst of both worlds. He doesn't get the protections that the criminal law gives to an adult criminal, and nor does he get any real therapy, any real benefit from the treatment.
Do you think it would be true, in fact, that the children who go through those courts, in fact, see them as punitive places rather than welfare places?
That seems to be the universal experience of people who've studied them, and certainly it's my experience. It doesn't matter how benevolent your motives and how much you tell the kids that they are. The kids and their families inevitably see these things as punitive.
The magistrates in the court have a wide series of alternatives in dealing with girls brought before them. The two most used methods are to put the girls on probation or to commit them to a child welfare institution. The youngest girls are sent here to Ormond School at Thornley. Many of these girls are delinquents in the sense that they went steady with boys while underage and without parental supervision, exposed to moral danger. Or they're delinquents because their parents didn't want them, uncontrollable. They are put in the care of child welfare officers. This is an ad from a recent suburban newspaper for such officers within places like Ormond. Salary $3,500, qualifications, no qualifications are required. The alternative to coming from court to Ormond School is the Parramatta Training School for Girls, as it's called. For the last 3 years, the annual reports of the Child Welfare Department have themselves complained of overcrowding at the home. 4 years ago, the new class block was completed within the grounds, and the photos of Parramatta within department reports are all from within those 4 years old classrooms. In an interview a fortnight ago, the Minister for Child Welfare, Mr Waddy, said TDT could not talk to the girls inside Parramatta because filming them would intrude on their privacy. These photos, taken from the 1970 annual report, clearly show the faces of some girls within Parramatta home.
Are you scared of going to Parramatta?
Yeah, I reckon.
Why?
Oh, the things that you hear about it. Really
Like?
Oh, they I don't know, it's just different than when they try to scare you.
You mean the girls try to scare you,
or
the people who are going to send you there try to scare you?
The girls, when you get there, you know, they start asking all questions and Just things like that, muck around you. Yes, do.
Parramatta is 130 years old this year. It was completed in 1843 as a Catholic orphanage. In 1973, it still stands, jailing girls classed by our society to be in moral danger.
Ever since that day, you know, that he bashed me, you know, I woke up to myself. And then when he went away, I got on silly and put a pin in me and went silly and mucked up and everything. And I ended up telling the superintendent the next day because I couldn't handle the pain, you know, it was just that bad, you know. So I went there and he gave me an easy go to scrub for the night for putting in that I put a pin in myself. So I scrubbed that night. I didn't mind.
What's scrubbing?
You get on your knees and you got a scrubbing brush, soap bucket, and you just scrub. Got to stretch right out. You just do it day and night, you know, if any girls muck up. They get you up at 6 o'clock in the morning to scrub if you're unprivileged, or if you're scratched or did tattoos or anything on you, they put you up the loft. The loft is above the laundry. It's a place where you got to scrub all the woodwork and all that. You scrub day and night until your arms really drop off.
Some girls are going real shy, because I know a girl who went there, she was real shy. And now she's really mad, she's wild. She'll end up back in there, you know, because she says she doesn't care, she does.
In Parramatta, girls have lovers in there, and they scratch for girls, stick pins in for girls, you know, as a lesbian way. And I don't...
Scratch on your skin?
Yeah,
and
carve.
Stick pins in your skin?
And things like that. And,
I don't understand that, I must admit.
You don't?
Well, why would you stick a pin in yourself because you love someone?
To prove that you love a girl. That's the way it goes in Parramatta. Because you're not allowed to see your boyfriend or anything, you know, and that's what makes you go like that. That's the only reason why they do things like that. But then girls get bashing for sticking pins in them, you know, and things like that. Why should they get bashings for it? It's their own skin, you know, they're not doing any harm to anybody else. Well, fair enough, you scrub and things like that, but you don't get a bashing over the top of your punishment. That's what they do sometimes.
How do they know you're lesbian, for one thing?
How? Because there is when girls have lovers, they send their love to the girls, and you're not allowed to do that. You lose marks. You know what I mean?
No, I don't.
Well, just say if I had a girl and I was in Parramatta, a girl would say, oh, send me love to Rose, like that, you know?
Just say it to you?
No, she'd give a message to a girl to give it to the other girl. And I'd say, oh, send my love back, you know? Well, you're not allowed to do that. You lose marks for that, or you get into trouble for it, you know? But that's how they know you. Also, girls cuddle each other on the coverway, you know, and all that. It's a lesbian way, you know. And they carry on down near the toilets or something, in bedrooms or something like that. That's how they know you're a lesbian way. And the officer and the superintendents watch you very careful. Watch you really careful, they do. But that's how they know you're a lesbian.
Well, who were the girls who survived and who were those who didn't?
Well, I didn't survive.
Why do you say that?
I'm a mess.
Why?
I don't know. Before I wasn't confused, now I am.
About what?
About everything. Life in general. If you do anything wrong, they'd always say, you know, if you don't watch yourself, you'll go to hay. And everyone was sort of so scared of hay. It's pretty bad.
Why? I mean, how would you have heard about it within Parramatta, though?
Oh,
apart from the warders.
Oh, girls come back from hay, and they stay. When you come back, they stay at Parramatta for 8 weeks, and if they behave, they go home. But Oh, you know, you sort of... They're not supposed to talk about it, but we sort of talk about it anyway to the girls.
And what do they say about Hay?
Oh, they said it's an awful place. One girl came back, was sort of, you know, eyes bulging. She was so scared and that.
So this is Hay. This is the place that was built last century, was an insane asylum in the 1930s, an army prison during the Second World War, and abolished in 1947 as too bad to be a men's prison. Today it holds young girls aged 15 to 18. Theoretically, they're the 12 most delinquent girls in the state, but as with so much else within the Child Welfare Department, the theory seems to be some distance from reality. Are you punished for being this one?
Yeah,
Like what?
like going to Hay.
Going to Hay.
The town of Hay is an isolated settlement in southwestern New South Wales. When the girls get here, their hair is cut, they're given a century-old cell, a uniform, and told the rules. They are allowed to talk to each other for an hour a day. To tie up shoelaces and other minor actions, they have to touch their shoulder and put up their hand. During the day, they tend to the garden and sew garments. As in all the other institutions of the department, they're kept in check by men. For those who can't keep the rules, there's always the punishment cell, shown here on this official map of the Department of Corrective Services.
What about discipline there?
It's a lot harder. It's really strict.
Do they hit you down there too?
No, it's just, you wouldn't want them back.